Your 30s will hit different than your 20s. And I know you're probably wondering, how do I know this myself? Because I'm not even 30 years old yet. But you don't have to be 30 years old in order to know this. You can see it around you yourself right now. You have a brother, a sister, cousin, aunts or uncles, friend, an acquaintance that is around 30 years old, and you will see yourself the difference. They will even tell you themselves the difference. The life and the responsibility of a 30-year-old is way much heavier than that of a 20-year-old. And most people expect their 30s to be all about settling, right? You see this a lot in movies where you went and did all the things that you were told to do. You went to college, you got yourself a good job that is paying you well, you are having a good relationship, you have 2 kids, you finally bought yourself the house, you have the car that you wanted, and now it's all about settling. But let's be real, that is only truly seen in movies and not really much in real life. Although we see that a lot in movies, the sad reality is that in life, most people in their 30s are not even settling or enjoying their 30s, but instead they're trying to make up the years that they wasted in their 20s. The entirety of their 20s was spent partying, drinking, eating junk food, having bad relationships constantly, doing nothing new, doing all types of drugs, and hooking up with randoms. And the result of this is a life that they end up despising when they're 30 years old. They're out of shape, they're aged like crazy, they're working a job that they despise, they're living in a crappy environment, they're settling for a partner that they do not even desire, but I mean, what else can they do about it? They're waking up every day wishing things were better, and they're making enough money to survive and never to enjoy. And the tough pill to swallow is that if you wasted your 20s, it doesn't get easier in your 30s. Growing up, going into my teens and going into adulthood, my dad would always tell me I shouldn't waste time. And I'm not gonna lie, when I would hear this a lot from my dad, I would get pissed because I kind of felt like pressured in a way, especially going into adulthood. I needed to figure out my life or to, do something with my life at an early age because I don't want to waste time like my dad told me. But it's only until I started to mature a bit more, when I started to realize, especially after observing people's lives, like seeing other people and how they're living their lives, especially when they're like into their 30s, I ended up realizing why he would tell me to not waste time. I know a guy who spent most of his 20s not doing any investing himself. For the sake of this video and for the sake of not saying his real name, let's just call him Felipe. He didn't go to the gym, he didn't learn anything new, he worked the same job and didn't elevate his position for years, or at least try to get a better job. He didn't improve his relationships, and his life stayed the same for many years. And to be honest, during this time, he was kind of miserable. Going into his 30s, Felipe finally started to make changes in his life. He started hitting the gym, he started improving his career, he started improving his relationships. He finally started to take risks that he didn't take when he was younger. It was never too late, to be honest, to make changes in his life, but that doesn't mean that everything is the same compared to when he was younger. Even though Felipe finally started to do things differently in his 30s compared to his 20s, he knew and he later on felt that it was going to be much more difficult. Even though he started working out in his 30s, he couldn't build muscle as easily compared to when he was younger, because as you get older, we all know that testosterone levels decrease. And so your testosterone levels when you're in your 30s are not going to be the same compared to your 20s. Right now, whatever age you're in, most likely if you're in your early 20s or even late teens, the testosterone levels that you have right now are going to be much higher compared to when you're in your 30s. That's just the nature of getting older. So now it would take double the amount of effort or even triple the amount of effort to build the same muscle that he could have easily built when he was in his 20s. Even though Felipe finally started to elevate his career, he wished he could have done it when he was younger. He actually regret the things that he did when he was younger, because if he would have taken advantage of doing the same thing when he was in his 20s, he would have been way ahead now in his 30s. And even though he finally started to take risks now, he found it way more difficult to do, because now, since he was a full-grown adult, he had more responsibilities, he had a full-time job, and that full-time job took a lot of time from his week, and he couldn't really put a lot of time and effort into his goals. And he wished he could have taken advantage of he was in his 20s, because now in his 30s, he can't easily say, I'm going to quit my job and go all in my goals. He has to work the job. He has no other option. He's going to end up homeless if he doesn't. He was starting to do all the things that he wished he would have done when he was in his 20s. And to be honest, he's doing great in his 30s, even though he started a little bit more later on than usual. And I'm not trying to discourage anyone, by the way, who's watching this and you're probably in your late 20s. I'm not discouraging you in any way to not pursue your dreams or to not, work on your goals, even though you started late. But you have to be honest that it's not as easy compared to when you're younger and you have all the time in the world to do that. Like, the responsibilities alone are a big difference. But either way, keep on going. Don't give up. And I'm also not telling you this story about Felipe to shame him for wasting his 20s, but I'm using him as an example that if he would have taken advantage of his 20s, his 30s would have looked a lot more different. He even knows this himself, and he wishes he would have taken advantage of his 20s. The truth is, your 20s are going to either make you or break you. You're going to either invest in your 20s or you're going to waste your 20s. And I'm not talking about investing in terms of stocks or crypto, even though that is a way that you could do it, but I'm talking about more so investing in yourself, investing in your future. Your 20s, especially especially your early 20s, are the prime years of your life. And the sad reality is that most people end up wasting the prime years of their life by doing degenerate things, and when they end up reaching their 30s, they regret so many things that they did when they were younger, and they end up despising the life that they currently live. This is why so many people reach their 30s going through a midlife crisis, because they wasted so many of the years when they were younger that now they're looking back and they're like, holy crap, I wasted so many years and I can't get them back. The current lifestyle that they despise is the result of all the repeated actions that they took when they were in their 20s. And so many people ignore the fact that the compound effect is a real thing. The things that you do so many times right now are going to end up generating a result later on. And whether that result is a good or a bad result depends on whether the actions that you're taking right now are investments towards your future, or are going to end up being liabilities that you're giving to your future self. In your early 20s, you need to make sure that you're putting in as much effort as you can towards building the ideal future that you want to live later on. Now, this doesn't mean that you have to do monk mode for 5 years and that you have to never leave the cave that you entered. Although, if you want to do that, go ahead. You just have to make sure that 70 to 90% of the actions that you're taking right now are towards building the future that you want to live. Invest in your mind. You need to understand yourself first before you ever get to understand the world. Before you ever get to understand what it is that you truly want to do in life, what path that you want to take, you have to know thyself. Journaling and self-analysis will help you gain understanding of yourself. This is how you're going to end up noticing the negative patterns that you constantly do in your life, the negative habits that you have, so that you can get rid of them so that they won't negatively impact your life. But you also need to develop the mindset required in order to elevate your life, because you can't be having a crappy mindset and expect your life to be any different. No matter what you do, if you have a negative mentality, you're going to perceive the world as negative, and your actions are also going to be negative because of it. Our mindset is the thing that helps us perceive the world a certain way. A growth, success-minded person is going to be able to succeed and create the ideal future that they want to live because they have the growth mentality. They don't see the world as scarcity. They don't see the world as negative. Instead, they see the world as a positive, and they see the world as having an abundance of opportunities to take advantage of. So study your mind, study philosophy, study psychology, study these things that you can easily study with books. I mean, there's an abundance of books out there right now. There is no excuse as to whether you can learn these things or not. And you don't have to pay thousands of dollars as a textbook in order to get these things. But investing in your mind is not only about knowledge and knowing yourself. It's also about building your mind. Challenge yourself to fortify your mind. Do what's hard. Do what is uncomfortable. Do the things that you don't want to do, but that you know is good for you. This is the only way that you can really truly strengthen your mind, because even though I do believe in positive self-talk, I actually believe in that. I still to this day practice positive self-talk. That alone won't strengthen or build your mind the way you want to build it. But getting out of your comfort zone on a consistent basis will help you do that. Knowing yourself, developing the right mentality, and strengthening your mind are going to help you whenever you come across any type of obstacle that comes your way later on. Invest in your health. In our youth, we're naturally more driven, more stronger, more energetic, and this is all because of the testosterone that we have built up revolving inside our nutsacks. In your early 20s, you will have the most testosterone that you will ever have naturally, and as you get older, your testosterone levels tend to decrease. By the time you're 30 years old and moving forward after that, each year your testosterone levels decrease by an average of 1%, and this makes it harder for you to sculpt your body the way you want, because now since you have lower testosterone, it's going to be harder for you to build muscle and also lose body fat. So a smart thing to do in your 20s, which by the way, if you're not doing this right now, if you're not taking advantage of the newbie gains that you have not yet gotten, if you guys have never lifted weights or anything like that, you have such a thing called noob gains, which basically you gain a lot more weight or got a lot more muscle easier when you first start working out. And if you haven't taken advantage of this yet, go to the gym, start sculpting the body that you want to sculpt. You won't need none of that steroids, none of those TRT. You won't need none of that, because naturally, since you're young, you're gonna have the most testosterone that you will ever have. I was once talking to one of my cousins, and he was telling me, since he's now in his 30s, that he finds it a lot more harder to build muscle, and he actually wishes that he would have went hard in the gym when he was a lot more younger, because he would have built a lot more muscle easier back then. Most people hit their 30s and they have to take TRT because they didn't take advantage when they were younger of all the natural testosterone that they had, all blown up in their nutsacks. But not only does going to the gym help you sculpt the body that you want to sculpt in your early 20s, but it also teaches you a lot of lessons that you could translate over into other areas in your life. One in particular is that if you go to the gym and you remain consistent, it teaches you that you will get the results that you want to get, and this translates over into other areas in your life. If you remain consistent, even if you put in the work, you're going to end up seeing the results. When it comes to the gym, you literally see the results. You look in your mirror and you see the abs, you see the muscle, you see the less body fat. You literally feel it. Like, you can see it and you can feel it. You feel a lot more better, you look a lot more better, and you have way more confidence now. And another thing that I also want to point out that a lot of people don't want to admit, but looks do matter to some extent. If you look like crap, then you will feel like crap, and you will also get crappy looks. We all judge each other by the way we look. Whenever we go outside and we see someone, we don't judge them by their personality or by their character because we haven't even met them yet. But the first thing that we look at is their looks. How do they look? Do they look good or do they look bad? Whenever you are attracted to someone, you're not attracted to their personality because you haven't yet even met them. You're attracted by their looks. That is how you kind of like get introduced to them. And then once you get to know them, you get to truly get to know if their personality is attractive, just like their looks are. Looks are not a major importance, but they do play a role. And we can't just simply ignore them and act like looks don't matter at all, because then we're just going to end up not taking care of ourselves at all. We're not going to end up going to the gym. We're not going to shower. We're not going to, dress nice. We're not going to do any of these things because we believe that looks don't matter. You could be a good guy who truly wants to take care of a woman, but if you do not look good or at least attractive enough, and I'm not saying that you have to be, like crazy attractive, right? But you just have to do the basic things. Just take care of yourself. If you don't do the basic things that you need to do in order to take care of yourself, like taking care of your body, then no girl will look your way. Your looks catches their eye, but your personality and your character catches their soul. And the first thing that you can do is take care of your body. The barrier to entry on this is so low. Like you can literally start from wherever you're at. You don't have to do anything extra. You don't have to buy anything. You could go for a run. You could do 50 push-ups. You can do 10 minutes of abs. And then if you want to go further, you could go and sign up to a gym or sign up to a combat gym like boxing. And over time, with consistency and with compounded efforts, I guarantee you're gonna end up getting results. The bar is so low to be above average that you can literally separate yourself from the rest by simply being in shape. Invest in your skills. You could work a job and get paid just enough to survive, but if you do not focus on building your skills, then you're gonna end up getting tied to a work that you hate because you don't have any other option. One thing that I've learned so far is that you can lose your job, but you can't lose the skills that you've mastered over the years. That stays with you for life. This is why you hear stories of millionaires who lose all the money that they generated, all the wealth that they built, but they literally make it faster than they did in the beginning, because even though they lost the money, they didn't lose the skills. Most people in their prime years of their life, which is in their 20s, never really take the time to learn anything new, to learn any new skill that's going to be valuable to them. Instead, they prefer to work a job that just pays them enough to survive, and any money that's left over, they end up wasting it at the club. When I say invest in yourself, I say invest in making yourself more valuable, and acquiring skills makes you more valuable. We already know that college is not the only answer to become valuable. In fact, we can actually even probably say that college is not even the answer at all when it comes to being valuable nowadays. The world has changed. A piece of paper does not add value. It's the skills that you have that add value. Invest in learning new skills. If you're working a job right now and after paying all the necessary things that you need to pay, like the light bill, the Wi-Fi, the food, the rent, all these different things, once you're done paying that, if you still have money left over, don't go and be like the rest where they spend the majority of it on parties and clubs. Instead, invest that money in learning new skills so that you could become very valuable, so that hopefully in a few years after that, if after you've mastered those skills, you could end up leaving your job and now you could work for yourself. There are skills that you can learn right now online that are highly profitable. Never stop learning. This is why so many people who graduate college or high school, they stop learning and their life remains the same. You have no excuses as to why you have no answers to the problems that you have right now, because there's someone out there right now who went through or has gone through what you are going through, and they have the answers to that problem. You can learn anything you want. There are resources that require little to no money to get access to these things. Things like books, podcasts, audiobooks, YouTube. If you do this, you set yourself up in your future to be irreplaceable because you have mastered the skills that you needed to master, and nobody can take that away from you. This sets you up to make the money that you want to make and to live the life that you want to live, and escape the miserable life of being in a cubicle for the rest of your years and then retiring by the time you're 70 and only getting to live like 10 of those, because by the time you're 80 or 90, you probably are not even living anymore. Your youth is not to be wasted. Right now, you have the minimal responsibilities that you will ever have, and you can use this either to your advantage, or you're gonna be just like the rest and you're just gonna waste it. Since you have minimal responsibilities right now, you have all the time and resources to go all in on your goals. Do not fall to FOMO, where you're putting in the work, all this time and effort into building the life that you want to live later on, and then you see all the people out there around the same age as you who are having the time of their life. They're partying, they're doing all these different things. I would feel this when I first started, and sometimes, I'm not gonna lie, I feel it, but I don't let it change my actions, because I know that later on in life, I already know the outcome that that's gonna generate, and that outcome is something that I do not want to live. So I'm just gonna continue to follow the path that I want to follow so that I end up generating the outcome that I do want to live later on. You already know how their future is shaping up. It's undesirable. This should take away any urge that you have to fall to the instant gratification that they're falling to. And this is going to lead you to living the life that you want to live in the future and not looking back regretting the things that you didn't do when you were younger. But anyways, that's all I got to say. I'm out.